Welcome back to the NFL Pick 6 Show quarter poll. Week 5, 4 weeks down. Hold on. Wait, we're week 5. 13 weeks to go.
Close enough.
More or less. Sure, why not? Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis. We also have John Daigle, 4 for 4. Bet Spurts as well. Going to be, if this is your first time listening to the show, where y'all been? You guys know how this goes. The Pick 6 Show, we focus on three main games. We break it down from all different angles. After we do that, we run it back and talk about our favorite plays, position by position, that are not playing in those three main games. 12-game main slate this week. We're losing another game to London. No total above 50. Philadelphia, Arizona, we talk about them soon enough. That's the highest total on the board currently on a Wednesday night at 49. No Chiefs, so no Mahomes, no Lamar. No tight ends.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one, man. I hear Daigle's voice. Daigle, take your victory lap, man. I saw you on Twitter with a 30-1, 32-1 as far as you hit a winner in the old Fanduel Sportsbook. Did you not?
Rashad Penny to lead rushing on Sunday. And we started talking about it last week. We laid the groundwork on Wednesday, noting that it was a good matchup for Penny anyhow. And once we kept getting Detroit's injury reports and lost both Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Chark in that game, you just figured that it made out even better for the Seahawks to not only pull an upset and win the money line. They were 5-point dogs, I believe, but also for Rashad Penny to explode. And it didn't look like we were going to get there in the first half. I'll say that. But at least he spiked those 2 long touchdowns in the second half. I didn't expect him to come in at 30% rostered in small field. Whenever lineups locked and I saw that, I was shocked. But he was still awesome. He was still good to have.
The price was really, really cheap on DK specifically.
Yeah.
I see we're talking DK, right?
Yes, DK. And DK lineups last week were interesting because the winners pretty much just played all the chalk, but then just tacked on 6% Geno Smith to it. And it's like, oh, I'll just do the 5-man onslaught of the same game and take down every tournament. Easy money.
Yeah, I'm sure last week at this time, I was talking about Geno Smith and cash or Geno Smith in general, and I was not happy about it. I'm like, that's where we're at. And if you just stayed with it, you felt pretty good about it because any game against Detroit, well, we're going to put that theory to the test, right? Because Detroit this week is playing against New England, and New England's not a fun offense. We'll see if Mac Jones is good to go. He's super, super cheap if you want to consider that route. But, yeah, I'm really curious to pick your guys' brains as far as what you like this week because to me, Rich, and feel free to throw back to last week, any thoughts as far as last week, but your overall screenshot for week 5, man, again, a lot of good stuff, not in the main slate, a lot of the main pieces, and, no game that's really jumping off the board. I guess can Arizona hang with Philly? We'll have that conversation to keep Philly's offense moving. But, yeah, what do you have as far as your overview on this slate before we dive in and break it down as far as the 3 main games?
I'm excited about it because it's fun. We love when nothing just stands out. Right? There's not a chalky game. And you know what? I also feel too, I felt like last week was like a turning corner, right? I'd always try to, absorb September. We try to find our way of the land. And then last week, it felt like, from an analyst perspective, from a DFS playing perspective, like just had a better grasp and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just a 1-week thing where things went well, but, it feels like I'm going to use that as confirmation bias that we're starting to take some of this, evidence-based, data and apply it the proper ways. Also, I couldn't believe this when I heard it, but that London game, this is the first time that I couldn't believe this stat that it's the first time that 2 teams with a winning record have ever played in a London game. Like,
That's amazing.
What are we sending them? Like,
usually the Jags,
the Jaguars.
Jags.
Yeah. The pre-2022 Jaguars.
What an absolute joke.
And they keep beating it up. They love that game over there in London. It sells out every single time.
And we may not even give them their best. It may be Jake Fromm facing off against Aaron Rodgers. We'll have to wait and see. Is
that okay? I haven't dug into that. I did see the Giants receivers, and I'm sure you guys saw this, combined for 3 catches and 25 yards. That's it. They're 3-1.
You shouldn't play any defensive backs against the Giants. Maybe this week you can now. When Wandale and Kadarius Toney play, that's fine. But yeah, you just put 11 up in the box and you just try to stop Saquon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Giants and the Bears playing games like in 1922 or something like that. It's insane.
Dean, did you catch any of that game? I know it probably wasn't on Red Zone because they didn't get in the red zone.
I will not take any red zone slander.
The last 4 minutes of that game, the Giants lost both their quarterbacks, and Saquon just played Wildcat and ran the clock out for the final 4 minutes.
I did see that. I did actually show that at Red Zone when Barkley was running. Yeah, so I did that. But I've not watched the game, or I've not watched the condensed version. Do you do that? You watch the condensed version, the 25 minutes, 30 minutes?
Occasionally, yeah. I want to go back and watch stuff. I will sometimes.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to watch them all, but if you want to look at the all 22 and stuff like that, I love the all 22 on Amazon. Are you guys watching that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, we have an agreement. We when Amazon has the option, just so the people know, and John, I'm not sure if you're on board with this or you're aware, but you have the option to put the all 22 on the screen. That's pretty cool. I appreciate it.
I actually didn't know that you could do it. Do you still get the same broadcasters if you go all 22?
Yeah, it's even better too because they show you pre-snap where everyone's lined up and everything. They do and they do squiggly routes where they do trackers where the guys are running routes.
Oh, okay. As long as I don't lose Kirk Herbstreit learning about NFL football live, I'm okay. Kirk Herbstreit had never watched an NFL football game before week 1. And it's kind of listen to a child discover what the NFL is. So I like actually listening to him because he has no idea what's going on.
Is that your own theory, or is that something he's kind of alluded to?
You could tell when you listen to him the fact that he only references their college films, even if they've been in the league for 9 years by now. It's pretty interesting listening to Herbstreit.
Has he had work done? I feel like he's had work done.
Probably.
Yeah. They zoomed in on the other day. I'm I think isn't 55 these days, Herbstreit? I don't know. But that was my thought. I wasn't thinking about his analysis. I was thinking he looks really young and something looks different about him. Maybe that's just
definitely check out the all 22 Prime. That's a winner.
Yeah, it's not going to be that's not the default channel, but you want to go to that.
Yeah.
Just slide over a couple and you'll find it. In the chat, they're talking about, what's up, chat? We appreciate when you guys listen to us live on the YouTube. Kindly hit that like button, do subscribe, and turn on those notifications. First couple comments I see is the Giants are going to win the division and that the Jalen Hurts is overrated. Come on.
My son in this chat?
Is your son a Giants fan?
Oh, he's a huge Giants fan, yeah.
I thought your son's a Cleveland fan, though, or it just depends on the sport.
He loves the Giants. He grew up liking Victor Cruz and has stuck with him. Victor Cruz is his favorite football player and stuck with him.
He might as well be playing right now, Victor Cruz, with the Giants. Would there be any difference? Would anybody even know? I don't know. John, did you have a thought as far as this 12-gamer, as far as the main slate before we dive in and break it down? Any kind of overarching take? Are you thinking now after 4 weeks, now we're getting the sample sizes are getting bigger, we're learning roles more and more, and that's being more helpful going forward?
Yeah, and it may be results oriented, but I did feel a lot more comfortable last week as well. I ended up onslaughting the Chargers and getting the pieces right in Herbert, Eckler, and Mike Williams around that Lions game last week. So feeling really good coming into this week. It's also fun, as you mentioned, because tight end, I've had some people reach out and mention Tyler Higbee and Zach Ertz, but what makes tight end so fun is that you're also not scared to fade those guys. Those guys don't kill you. So you could literally just go completely off the board this week. And I got a couple suggestions. I'm excited for this week. I like the shitty slates. They're my favorite.
I just want to get over week 4 because I'm a chalk donkey through and through. And I made the bold decision to almost fully fade Hawkinson. And that was we're not. That
was the key piece. Not even Jamal Williams could get you there. You pretty much had to have Hawkinson to be serious last week.
Yeah, it was like that week last year where Jonathan Taylor had the 5 touchdowns against the Bills. If you didn't have that piece, it didn't matter. You had to have Hawkinson. The dude that boned me, actually a really great week. But I came around on Hawkinson because Daigle ran down the injury report, and I was well, I just have to do it. But the dude that I just couldn't get the mental hurdle over was Josh Jacobs, and that's the one piece that stopped me from really shipping a bunch of things. If I just would have gotten over my own bias on Josh Jacobs, we would have made it. Because I had a ton of that Broncos stat, the Broncos, and we were cooking, man. And Josh Jacobs is out here looking like 1994 Bo Jackson, just incredible.
I got Adams over Jacobs at 12% in small field on Fanduel too. I felt really good, but it didn't matter because Jacobs just scorched the earth.
Yeah, I was told Jacobs wasn't going to play this year because he played the Hall of Fame game for too long. So that's what I was told, and I stuck with that take. And yeah, man, he's looking spectacular, and his role is awesome as well. Another team that's off the slate, the Raiders Chiefs. That should be a fun one on Monday night. All right, the very first game we're going to be talking about in our 3-game set, Seattle. Seattle at the Saints, 46 as far as the total. Seattle's a 5-point dog here in New Orleans in the Dome. John, I guess I saw limited practice for Kamara. Michael Thomas and Winston, I believe, did not practice today at all. Where are we at on a Wednesday night? If you're going to speculate who's going to be in, who's going to be out come Sunday?
We're touch and go with Seattle's with New Orleans offense right now. But what we do know is that Jared Goff was still able to finish as the QB1 last week against Seattle's defense. So we have to take into account this Saints offense, no matter who is out there, because Seattle's defense has now permitted the second highest rate of explosive passes, 15 plus yards downfield this year, and a league high 8.3 yards per attempt to opposing quarterbacks. Andy Dalton was also frisky, not elite, but frisky. I don't know, honestly. I'm still 50-50 on Jameis Winston, who I actually think is a pretty awesome tournament play this week, especially because he is leveraged with Chris Olave, since we know that's where everyone's going to go, no matter what, whether Winston plays or not. But overall, yeah, I do think we may get Winston. I think we definitely get Kamara, and then I would guess we don't get Michael Thomas. And as we saw last week, Marquez Callaway, who will probably get interesting on DraftKings given his stone minimum salary, led the team in routes run last week, 6 targets as well, behind Olave 7 as Michael Thomas's fill-in. So that's kind of where I stand on a Wednesday.
Yeah, let me ask you this follow-up question. Let's say it's Dalton, right? Dalton, I think, is 5'2" or 5'3" on DK. We also have, I presume, Teddy Bridgewater at 5'4" versus the Jets. And what if we have Mac Jones at 5'2" versus Detroit? You're talking about picking on that Seattle defense. I mean, you know better than me. I would guess Detroit was the number 1 team to pick on with quarterbacks. I don't know, but they feel like they would be on the Family Feud board. Your favorite amongst cheap quarterbacks, if it's Dalton, and Winston, by the way, is 5'5", so he's also super cheap as well if he goes. And I would think ideally you'd want to spend a few extra bucks for Winston over Dalton. I don't know. Your favorite amongst that grouping, though? Do you have one that kind of stands out?
I think it's still Winston, since we also know he was throwing downfield, a top 4 rate on attempts 20-plus yards downfield before his injury. Mac Jones was actually leading the league in 20-yard passes before his injury. But I don't think it's necessary to get to Mac Jones because the receivers we can play that are leverage off of Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson. We'll talk about them and the positional plays, like Devontae Parker, for instance, if Jacoby Myers doesn't play, Hunter Henry if Jonnu Smith is out. Like, those receivers are still digit leverage. So we don't have to worry about playing Mac Jones and worrying about the injury. You can still play those other guys and try to soak up the touchdowns away from the running backs instead. So I don't think it's necessary to play Mac Jones.
Rich, do you have a favorite cheap quarterback ideally? And I don't even necessarily have to. And I ran some optimals before the show. And for the record, on FanDuel, like 90% of them hit either Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen. Like, you're just paying up for one of those two on FanDuel in your optimal cash game build on a Wednesday night. DK, it's a little bit more spread out. The biggest number is Josh Allen for what it's worth at 35%. Then Brady and Mariota, then Hurts, then Mac Jones, assuming he plays. But let's say we're scraping the barrel. And we're on New Orleans. Feel free to throw out New Orleans if you want. But do you have a preference amongst Mac Jones, Bridgewater, and New Orleans quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going into it expecting that Mac Jones doesn't play. So,
okay.
I mean, I'm just gonna go with that. I mean, every by all accounts, that injury was gonna be a multi-week injury. So if we get there, we get there. So I'll recalibrate if he ends up, magically, finding a new leg and putting it on by the end of the week. But I mean, Dale kind of hit on like, I mean, you look at this. We talked about it a little bit last week with Seattle. This defense is by far the worst defense in the NFL. I mean, they are allowing over 3 points per possession in the NFL. 55% of the drives against them have produced points. They are allowing the league high 8.2 yards for passing play. Now, put some context around this. They have played Russell Wilson. They have played Trey Lance, who got hurt at the start of the game, and Jimmy Garoppolo. They played Marcus Mariota, and they have played Jared Goff, missing Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, and DJ Shark. Like, this defense is absolutely abysmal.
That's amazing.
Like this defense, you can do whatever you want. There's not one positional unit that when you look up how they're doing in Seattle, they're awesome. They don't stop anything. They don't stop anything on the ground. They don't stop anything through the air. Tight ends, fullbacks, whatever you want to start against these guys. Like you can just fire up anybody you want. So we're just waiting to see who the Saints quarterback is going to be, right? Because like that guy is going to be live. There's just no way he won't be live. I actually, while Jameis would be like the most fun, obviously for Jameis reasons, Dalton actually was like a way better real life quarterback for the Saints last week. Like you forget the Saints coming into that London game had scored one offensive touchdown outside of the fourth quarter on 25 possessions. Like Jameis was outright losing them football games. Dalton at least just like kept them around and just like they were live at the end of the game. So at least if Dalton can facilitate a little bit, maybe we get more of these pieces like that we really want to play, like the Olaves, the Alvin Kamaras, not the Adam Troutmans, but he's out there running routes now. But yeah, definitely like guys like Olave and Kamara.
Olave 5'7" on DK, Thomas 5'8". We'll wait and see as far as his availability. You mentioned Callaway, John, he's 3'3", and then Kamara is 6'6", which is when was the last time we saw Kamara at 6'6"? I feel like that's been a long time, if ever. It's been a while.
Even Jarvis Landry would be freaking live in this game.
Imagine what you can do, Dean, with Dalton, Olave, and Marquez Callaway. You could fit Derrick Henry. You could go up at wide receiver. You could do whatever the hell you want.
So what is your favorite starting point as far as the New Orleans side? If you're going to assuming everybody's healthy, everybody's good to go. Let's just assume that just for the conversation. Who would be your favorite player to start with on New Orleans?
I'm eating the Olave chalk. I can't get away from it. Since week 2, he's averaging 11 targets per game, 29.7% target share in that span, and he has nearly 300 more air yards than the next closest player in the NFL in that time. Like, it's not only it may have been prayer yards if it was 3 targets per game, but now that they're jamming him double-digit targets per game, both downfield, Matt Harmon also charted his routes last week, and Olave ran like the most expansive route tree with Andy Dalton he's run all season. So they're also using him in different ways now to make life easier for him and Dalton. So I think I'm definitely just eating Olave and calling it a day.
Yeah, question in chat from Josh, and I was thinking the same thing. I'll ask Rich. Dalton, is he going to throw down the field? Is he going to similar ADOT? Is he going to be as ambitious, or is he going to be like a quarterback manager, right? A game manager, like you said, Rich. Like Dalton feels like he'd be more fun. I'm sorry, Winston feels like he'd be more fun. He'll take some more chances, but how much of a significant drop is that as far as would Dalton take the same or similar risks to make him worth playing for some upside?
No, not as Winston, but Winston, we're just like said, a lot of those air yards Daigle just quoted, like they weren't real. Those are fictional. Those are what we call prayer yards. They weren't real. They were not catchable targets on any level. At least we're getting catchable targets to these other players. And imagine if you just give him some better players. Think about what Dalton played with last week. It was just Olave.
Yeah,
that's all he had. Like we don't know if Michael Thomas is going to play, but Alvin Kamara has stated he's going to play. We'll see, if they get, Cesar Ruiz back up front. Because remember, they were down 2 offensive linemen too in that game. Andrews Pete didn't play in that game either. So, if they just have better pieces too, it could be better. And, so the matchup's better. Like, the Vikings are just a way different tier of defense. And they're not even really that good compared to what Seattle's putting on the field right now.
John, you going back to Penny? He's still pretty cheap on DK. 5'3". Feels like he didn't get a big enough bump.
That is pretty cheap, but I don't think it's the week for Penny. I think I'll still be attacking through the air. Geno Smith now has 2 top 7 finishes at quarterback with 25 fantasy points per game the past 2 weeks. And it did come in soft matchups against the Falcons and Lions, but we're still expecting the volume to at least be there. The Seahawks are 15th in pace and 3rd in no huddle rate the past 2 games, averaging 66 plays compared to running less than 50 in both weeks 1 and 2, after Pete Carroll mentioned that they need to actually play faster and be an up-tempo offense. The Saints are also next to last in pressure rate, and Kyler Murray is the only quarterback averaging a higher completion rate than Geno Smith from a clean pocket this year. So I do think we're going to get some pushback for the Saints as well, through the air in particular.
I was taking a look at Derek Carty, the blitz, his game level factors, and this actually is the third projected total, third highest projected total as far as actual game plays, behind the Pittsburgh Buffalo game and the Arizona Philadelphia game, which we'll be talking about that one shortly. Rich, talking about the Seattle side.
Yeah, Seattle's definitely, this would be like the truth game, right? Like, because like Daigle said, like you play Atlanta, then you play Detroit, like two teams that have been kind of bonanzas all year. But to be fair, they smashed in those games. Like they didn't just like, tippy toe around those matchups and like scored 24 points. Like they played really well in those games. And Geno had really high output. And the biggest thing is we're just like, these receivers have life again, right? Like 2 weeks into the season, it was like, man, like, wow, DK Metcalf looks like just in shambles. Like, holy shit, this dude's just like, is like just going to waste the year of his career. What's Tyler Lockett going to do? And like, these guys are functional now. Like they're like live plays now. DK is obviously the man coverage killer. He actually, since he's entered the NFL, leads the all wide receivers and target rate per route on against man coverage. And the Saints are kind of one of these teams that go like in between. They go in and out of playing zone and man. So if we see him, get these one-on-one matchups with Marshawn Lattimore, he's going to have a chance to make plays. Geno's giving him a chance to make plays. And then Tyler Lockett's just been like the anti-version of Tyler Lockett we've seen his whole career, right? Like Tyler Lockett was like, I'll get you like 12 for 120 and 2 touchdowns, and then I'll go like 3 weeks of not doing anything. Now he's just like a steady Eddie floor play. You look at 9 for 107, 9 for 76, 6 for 91 the past 3 weeks. Like he's just getting there, and he's with Geno being as accurate as he's been. He leads the NFL in completion rate. He leads the NFL in completion rate over expectation. Like Lockett's found like this new like stability there, and like we haven't even seen him like really connect on like big plays yet because we know he's still capable as well. So I mean, yeah, that's the big thing is that like we've seen two players that we know inherently are good, and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and like almost like a phoenix, they've risen from the ashes, attached to Geno Smith. Like who would have figured this out?
Russ was holding him back. Geno Smith is saving him, like we all predicted. I see in the chat they're talking about Latavius Murray potentially being the goal line back. He's no longer on the Orleans. He had a cup of coffee and he's out, and he's on Denver now. So yeah, proud of UCF.
It's Daigle's favorite player in the NFL now too.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I had to rewrite a whole waiver wire column during halftime of Monday Night Football. What are we doing?
Hey, he's got a better opportunity for touches there in Denver, so he's out. He's like, I don't need any of this nonsense.
That's what the 4for4 waiver wire column says. But a lot of other people are going Mike Boone, so we'll see. We'll see who wins in the end.
Yeah, I mean, is either one of them have a lot of value right now, or just going to be some kind of goofy split where it's going to be a mess?
It's probably going to be a goofy split. There are reports that the Broncos were actually going to cut Melvin Gordon if Javonte Williams, like if they came out of that game. Like apparently the Broncos are so unhappy with Melvin Gordon's fumbles that like they are completely down on him. Latavius Murray is obviously the 3-down back over Mike Boone. At least he projects as such. So we're just taking long-term swings for the fences. I'm in a couple leagues where FFPC especially where I'm getting by on Jamal Williams, my RB2, but that's only good till week 7. What do you do after that? So I'm taking a couple bids on Latavius Murray.
Hey, what do we have as far as New Orleans defensively? Because I remember coming into the year, like a lot of people were touting them as possibly being the best defensive unit. It doesn't look like that according to the scores. I've not fully dove in like you guys have. Rich, John, like is it still incomplete? How good is this New Orleans defense?
They're good. They're 9th in passing points allowed. They're 7th in passing points allowed per game. They're 9th in passing points allowed per attempt. They're allowing to 6.5 yards per pass attempt, a 2.3% touchdown rate. They have faced like Baker Mayfield and Mariota. They faced Brady and Cousins too, as the other two guys. So I mean, they've been good. They've been solid. They're terrible at rushing the passer though. They're dead last in the NFL in pressure rate, which is something that we weren't really expecting, because they actually were pretty good in that department last year. But they've been solid. They've got good players. As I said, this is kind of like a test for the Seattle side. Like they are still good here. Then like it was kind of where we were the Jaguars last week. And like, we got kind of an incomplete because of the weather there, but we did get some truths. But that's kind of where we are with Seattle this week. It's like, all right, you showed us 2 weeks against 2 really bad defenses that like, we can at least play you a matchup basis, but what if we need to come to you every week? That's what we'll find out this week.
John, you got anything else for us this game, or shall I move on?
If you want a very cheap tight end, he is he is doing it from outside the 10-yard line. Will Dissly has a touchdown in 3 of 4 games, and he hasn't scored any of them inside the 10-yard line. But at the same time, he was the first Seattle tight end all year last week to run a route on at least 60% of dropbacks. They are leaning on him, presumably more. He's also second on the team in red zone targets, just behind DK Metcalf. He's 3,300 on DraftKings. And again, tight end is wide open this week. So if you're playing this game, you're looking for a sneaky like run back perhaps with your Chris Olave. Will Dissly I may play in a few lineups.
Game 2 on the docket, Tennessee at Washington, 42.5 is the total. Tennessee, couple point favorite here. Traylon Burke unlikely to play, carted off last game. Also, this game is projected to have the fewest plays, a really, really slow pace if you throw out the Cincinnati-Baltimore game, which is not on the slate. So on the slate, Cardi's got not a lot of plays going on this game. John, I gotta be honest. I was a little surprised to see this game pop up in the 3 that we're featuring. There's got to be some stat or some player you really want to focus on here.
Well, I kept on trying to get away from Cardinals Eagles, but then I was like, I guess like everyone's going to play that game. So we have to talk about the Cardinals and the Eagles every single week. But also, you asked me who my favorite cheap quarterback is. I think it may be Carson Wentz, honestly, because if you put it into context, he was a top 6 quarterback in fantasy in both opening games against the Jaguars and Lions. But then the last 2 weeks, he's played the Eagles and Cowboys, who are top 10 in pressure rate. So the Titans compare more to those first 2 games since the Titans are bottom 5 in pressure rate right now. So I think we could get some pushback from the Commanders here. And with Jahan Dotson likely out this week, expecting to miss the next 1 to 2 games with his hamstring injury, the target tree also condenses. So like double stacking him is quite easily too if you want to get there.
Oh man, Terry,
Dean, imagine what you can do with your lineup if you double stack Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel.
I can throw it straight.
The world is your oyster.
It goes straight in Carson Wentz straight in the garbage. I thought I saw a note today. Maybe was it like a speculation that they might want to get rid of Wentz already?
There are some rumors that internally they are pretty much done with him. Yeah. But again, it's an easy matchup. This is the spot.
He's gonna hang out with Melvin Gordon somewhere this week.
Last I checked, the Millie Maker's only $20. There's a lineup waiting there for you.
The Carson Wentz Carolina season's gonna be real fun. Ready to live that.
Oh my gosh. Well, all right. Rich, can you buy into this Wentz nonsense? The one point I was gonna ask, and John made it, it's like, will he have some time? Because he desperately needs time back there. He can't move, he's immobile. And, he's the kind of guy, I feel like he's been sacked a lot this year. I could be wrong on that. He gets pressured often. But that's just from the red zone I've been watching, Rich. You can confirm or deny. I can only watch so much Wentz.
Yes, he was. He faced 2 top 10 teams in pressure rate, like Daigle said, the past 2 weeks. The Tennessee Titans are 26th in pressure rate. The Tennessee Titans have also allowed a QB1 score in 3 straight games. 2 of those guys have been Derek Carr and Matt Ryan. Not exactly like dudes that you're going to like pencil in and say like, all right, well, what's the fantasy stones throw away? Like Wentz is still like in that group. They've surrendered their 23rd in completion rate allowed. They're 31st in yards allowed per pass attempt. They're 27th in yards allowed per completion. They're 31st in touchdown rate allowed. Yeah, I mean, Wentz has showed, at least from the small sample we have this season, he's been able to exploit bad matchups, and he's been really avoidable when the matchups get better. So like this would be one to say like, yeah, he can get there. Now we just need the Titans not to get out to an early lead and start running the football like last week. But there are a few plays in this game that I think are really interesting. The first guy is Terry McLaurin.
Hell yeah.
McLaurin on paper looks like one of the biggest like sharp buys I think of this week. With Jahan Dotson, sideline, like Daigle said, it condenses the kind of route tree. But where Terry McLaurin runs his routes is where the Titans are just absolutely getting flambéed right now. They are allowing a league high 75% catch rate and 12.3 yards per target to boundary wide receivers. They've allowed the highest completion rate on throws over 20 yards downfield. Terry McLaurin leads the Commanders in percent of routes run 20 yards downfield. They are just getting absolutely crushed. Terry McLaurin, when I did the game write-ups, like he stood out immediately in this game. It's like, ooh, people probably are not going to want to play this dude. But I thought that about Rashad Penny last week when we did this show too, and we got around there too. But yeah, he looks really good. And then I think Robert Woods also looks like a really intriguing option in this game on DraftKings more than FanDuel, especially with Treylon Burks being out. Washington is 28th in yards per target allowed to opposing wide receivers. They're 30th in touchdown rate. This is another game like the other quarterback in this matchup also has a good matchup. He's also been playing a lot better football than Carson Wentz consistently too. But Washington, like they just regularly does like have guys all alone defensively. Like they don't even guard guys. Like, I mean, you saw CeeDee Lamb touchdown last week.
Yeah.
They give up multiple plays like that a week. Like they have communication issues. And the cool thing about it is they're actually good against the run. Like they're just funneling people to throw like on this just ass secondary. They can't guard anyone. So I think Robert Woods is very interesting at his price too. So there are two like cheapy guys. Like you might not onslaught this game, but I think there are two pretty cheap guys in McLaurin and Woods that are very intriguing in this matchup.
I really do like Carson Wentz a lot. The issue is that the theme of the slate is, can you get off of Tom Brady or Josh Allen? And so that's what I think about whenever I think about playing Carson Wentz. And okay, maybe I should just skinny stack McLaurin with Derrick Henry and McLaurin with Robert Woods, like Rich said.
And you have Brady ahead of Hurts?
I like Brady a lot this week.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about that one in a second. It's interesting you guys both want to focus on the ones, right? With the injuries to both receivers. Like you're not necessarily talking about how and I know the depth is really bad, like the Curtis Samuels of the world or the NWIs of the world for Tennessee. The depth for Tennessee is horrific. Maybe does Derrick Henry get 5 more passes thrown his way? Is that going to continue? Because Tennessee is kind of out of receivers. They might have a better receiving core than the Giants, but not many other teams. John, does that continue? Is that going to keep happening? Is Henry going to get 5-6 looks once again in the passing game?
I don't know if it's ever continued for 2 games, and it has continued the last 2 games. So I keep being skeptical. Like in week 3, 6 targets matched his career high. Week 5, and then last week he had 5 targets. That was the second most he's ever seen in his career. So now he's basically matched career highs in back-to-back games. Also running around on 49% of dropbacks, 23% target share in that span. So it may be because they don't have anywhere else to go, even though a target to Derrick Henry is very efficient. But overall, I don't know why it would go away, since we're looking up and Kyle Phillips is still questionable. Treylon Burks carted off with turf toe, won't play this game. It's really only Robert Woods. So yeah, I still like Derrick Henry a lot.
Yeah, you think that's going to continue, Rich? Because again, like there's nobody. It's like the Giants, sort of like, but Barkley, of course, has a history of catching a bunch of passes. Henry, not so much. But where are the options? If you're not throwing it to Woods, you're not throwing it to Henry. Who are you throwing it to on Tennessee?
Now, the cool thing about the last 2 weeks with Derrick Henry is they're doing what everyone's literally screamed for the last 4 years. Because he's only run 13 and 11 pass routes. Like he's not getting actual like dump offs. Like he's not getting checkdowns. They're running designed plays for him in the pass game. And that's like all we've said is like, hey, all we're asking you to do is run 1 screen pass a half to Derrick Henry, right? Like that's all we used to say. Like just do it once each half. And like they're kind of doing those things, right? Like so it'd be one thing if like he just like luck boxed into some targets on like some checkdowns, right? But they're calling designed pass plays for him for the first time consistently. It's only a 2-game sample, but with all their injuries, like I don't see why they wouldn't really why they would just immediately go away from that. And I also think that they have to do that because they suck at running the football. Last week was the first week they actually ran the ball effectively, but like this offensive line has just been battered. They lost Taylor Lewan coming into the season at the start of the season. They really have struggled to run the football up until every game until last week. So I think they've incorporated some of that stuff to kind of mitigate, some of the ineffectiveness that they've had running the football. We just need them not to like really get ahead. Because you saw last week when they laid at halftime against the Colts, they threw 6 passes in the second half of that game. Like we can't have that happen.
John, before we move on, did you want to feature one of these terrible tight ends? You said you had some garbage tight ends you want to throw out there. Has anybody in this game catch your eye? Are you a big Jeff Swain guy? Thomas do anything for you?
We did talk about the condensed target tree, so it's literally just Curtis Samuel, who has led this team in targets somehow in every game this year. Terry McLaurin, who Rich already discussed, is is an awesome play from the boundary against the Titans. And then Logan Thomas is their third receiver, logically. We've seen his route participation increase in every game, leading to a season high route on 70% of dropbacks last week. So we think that only grows. And now is the opportunity where he could have targets and place a Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson was only getting there on touchdowns anyways. He converted his 3 end zone targets into 3 touchdowns. That's why he was never really a redraft play, but maybe those instead leak out to Thomas now. So yeah, I think Logan Thomas is a legitimate play in this slate.
Yeah, I was going to ask if like De'Ami Brown, it's still a minimum 3K, or is that guy? I think Amon St. Brown killed him, right? He's dead. Is that? Did you see that quote, Rich?
He's gonna be out there for sure.
Yeah.
He'll be exercising. I tweeted out as a Daigle getting pushback, but Washington has used 11 personnel on 85% of their passing plays, which is third in the NFL. So De'Ami is gonna he'll have a shot of retribution.
Maybe he's learned something since last year, but if we recall correctly, he earned a target on only 12% of routes last year. Like
he didn't have Carson Wentz though.
That's true. That is true.
I like McLaurin, like I said, and it kind of lines up too because Samuel, Tennessee actually has been pretty decent against slot receivers so far this year. And like Samuel, the other thing about Samuel is he's kind of a trap because not only do you need inherent volume for him to get there, like he also has to score a touchdown. I mean, he's only averaging 8.4 yards per catch and 5.9 yards per target because of the role he's in. Like he has to get a lot of targets to even get you to his salary. And then he has to score a touchdown to kind of push you over. So now that he's like been kind of like a hot guy the last couple weeks and his price has gotten the 5s, I don't really see a lot of great value on him, anymore.
Between Carson Wentz and De'Ami Brown, I'm definitely scratching my lottery ticket in the Millie Maker this week. I can already tell you. I'm already aching to lose that $20 this week. Hell yeah.
Oh my gosh. You guys did talk me into, I know it's going to be a slow game, right? But we kind of know who the targets are going to be. And I like I'm not attaching myself to these quarterbacks. I can't stoop. I can't do it. But McLaurin and Woods, I like running those two at each other.
I was pretty surprised when I saw it open at 42.5, and it continues increasing, but I was pretty shocked when I saw that total.
Yeah, I mean, this is the NFL in 2022. There are no, like, mid-40s, you're like, ooh.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you seen San Fran, Carolina?
Yeah.
39.
They'll probably go under, too.
The 49ers may score 37, and it still goes under.
Oh, God. Oh, Baker Mayfield, the stench. All right, game 3. Let's talk about Philadelphia, Arizona. This is the highest total on the board. It's not at 50, but it's at 49. Philadelphia 5-point favorite here in Arizona. We're in the dome as well too. Gotta love Hurts in the dome. That offense is moving. It's looking pretty solid. Like you said, there was kind of that monsoon, whatever it was, the last week with Jacksonville. Didn't get a full. I think that game would be more fun if it was. We actually got to see how it played out in a perfect environment. But the tricky thing with this one, and I'm sure you've seen this, Rich, is like how bad Arizona's been in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess there's one or two ways to look at it. Like they're making good halftime adjustments because in the halftime. In the second half, they tend to come back and do pretty well and make the games close sometimes. What's go? I mean, is there anything to make of that, or is that just like small sample size stuff? Or you can't really get behind 3 touchdowns to Philadelphia. That could be a problem.
Rich may have actually started this first half trend, honestly, not just to hear about it, because his tweet was fire.
Which one was that?
The fantasy points for Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray in the first and second half.
They're like bizarro. Yeah. I mean, the thing about Jalen Hurts is, and we've talked about it, I think we brought it up in like week 2 or 3 where we called it like the happy learned how to putt moment. Like he's winning in structure. Even last week in that game in the rain, like he threw for 8.2 yards per pass attempt. Like he's winning in structure as a passer. He doesn't need these like jailbreak scenarios to get there because they're coming out and just thumping teams offensively. Their offense actually looked really good when they like in that monsoon. Like once after that pick 6 on the tip ball to start the game, like their offense was just moving the football, like just like it regularly would. Like the weather didn't impact them at all. But what's hurt the Eagles is that they haven't trailed at all in the second half, not for a single snap. They trailed. They're the only team in the NFL. And it's kind of capped Jalen Hurts. He has the most fantasy points in the NFL in the first half of games. The next closest player is almost 30 points behind him. Guess how many points he scored in the second half? He's 156th. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in the second half of a game. He hasn't rushed a touchdown in the second half. He's thrown just 38 passes in the second half through 4 weeks because they've never trailed. They've never had to do anything. No team has challenged them. what could Jalen Hurts do if he actually plays a full game? Like he's out here ripping off top 5 quarterback weeks, playing a half of football every week. Like, I mean, I don't know if Arizona is going to be the team to do it because, like you said, Cliff has these guys starting in a hole, and it's only Wednesday. But I don't know if you guys saw this, but the entire Arizona offensive line minus one player missed practice today. It's only Wednesday, but not great encouraging signs, there to start off. And I don't know if it's really that Cliff's making adjustments. The game is just in like a complete jailbreak scenarios, and Kyler's just doing Kyler stuff like in the second half. I don't really think that they're doing anything like making necessarily changes. The Arizona offense in particular is very interesting because they're very slow this year. They're like 31st in neutral pace. They're 31st in use of motion. They're not using motion anymore at all. And they're not generating any explosive plays at all. They're 32nd in the NFL explosive play rate. Kyler is thrown for under 6 yards per pass attempt in every game this season. This is like the opposite of what we've seen from them in the past. Like when they were not even that great with Cliff, they were still playing fast. They were still moving guys all over the field, and they were making adjustments. Like they just suck. They're just stagnant. They're stale. They're not fun at all. And like I said, the Eagles have been dog walking teams. Like what's to make me think they're just not going to dog walk the Cardinals this week?
Yeah. Is it the absence of Hopkins and Edmonds and Moore, or just is there one thing you can kind of point to that makes Arizona just be so terrible? Like it feels like they've taken a big step back.
I mean, they have a bunch of dudes hurt, and they're just not like really that talented. I mean, their roster outside of Kyler and Hollywood Brown is like all old guys. Like even defensively, like they built their defense on signing like all these old veterans. They tried to sign a bunch of old veterans on the offensive line. Like they just don't have a lot of good young players. Like it's just a shortage. They don't, and then you combine like you add an injury onto insult this season because they have been one of the most injured teams to start the year. You have no depth behind any of those guys, and it's just exposed. And then you throw in like Cliff's game management, and it's just been like a house of cards. And ironically, they're tied for first place in the division. Like what? What are we doing here?
And that's why you've seen Marquise Brown have at least 11 targets in 3 consecutive games. Zach Ertz have 6 catches in 3 consecutive games as a full-time player because like there's nowhere else to go. Like these are their 2 guys. But again, even on a tight end deprived slate, you're not worried about Zach Ertz killing you. You don't care. You could fade Zach Ertz with confidence if you want, especially if he's going to be high rostered and the highest total of the week. So that's just where we're at right now.
If you think this game's going to be close, John, though, you got to love the Philadelphia, the Hurts offense. Arizona's going to find a way to stick with them. I mean, the best case scenario, if you have a Hurts stack, is you want him to throw like a pick 6 in the very first play of the game. Like, that's what you want. And have him chasing for a while. Just you give up those 2 points just to get yourself an extra touchdown on layaway. Where do you want to start, John? You want to start in Philadelphia? You want to talk about Arizona's offense, why it's been pretty putrid? They lost Andy Isabella. We can't. That's no longer a thing, right? I think
they lost Andy Isabella when they drafted him.
NFL Twitter is so mad, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to play Hurts, you mentioned Hurts, and Hurts is obviously fine for cash games. Like he still came out quite well last week, and that's when they had a 29-14 lead in the fourth quarter. So like Hurts is totally fine. He's safe in cash game. He's still averaging 12 carries per game. It's okay. But for the receivers, AJ Brown's floor this year has been his 25.8% target share in week 2. Like that's literally has been his lowest target share all year. Devonta Smith only has 1 top 24 finish this season, but no one notices because everyone's enamored with his performance as the overall wide receiver 1 in week 3. Whereas AJ Brown has finished as a top 24 wideout in 3 or 4 performances and has yet to finish any lower than wide receiver 38 on the season. Like AJ Brown gets there every single week. He never fails you. Plus still has a obviously top 10 ceiling and leading this team in targets. So I still like AJ Brown if you're playing Jalen Hurts. And then of course, like where we're at, we'll talk about this positional plays, but like where we're at with Devin Singletary or Josh Allen trying to leverage off the passing game. I mean, it's Miles Sanders. Last week without Boston Scott, Sanders handled 78% of backfield touches, a season high. And his 67% snap rate was actually the first time any of Philadelphia's running backs logged at least 60% snaps all year. So Sanders is right there too. If you just want to get off Hurts and you're still trying to get a piece of this game and leverage Philly's touchdowns.
Somebody was missing, right? Boston Scott was missing that game.
Boston Scott was out.
Okay, is he expected to be out going forward, or we don't know?
I didn't see his practice report today. I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter, I guess, is another important question. Or is Sanders, that's just
Sanders handled 71% of backfield touches the week prior. Like, it was increasing every single week, maybe because how he's playing, because he's playing awesome right now. And so I don't know, like, and maybe if Boston Scott's active, it maybe dips Sanders' ownership a tad. But either way, like, the leverage. That's the one you're playing here.
Rich in a vacuum, obviously it would matter what your whole lineup is, but you got Hurts or you got Allen. Who would you rather start a lineup with?
I would say probably Hurts. It's close. I mean, this Pittsburgh, they just fumbled this thing so bad with Kenny Pickett. I mean, you play on Thursday night the week before. You have 10 days to get Kenny Pickett ready to play at home against the Jets, right? And they don't do it. And then you end up having to bring him in at halftime. And now he's going to make his first career start on the road in Buffalo as a 14-point underdog.
Set up a failure.
I mean, the Steelers just botched that situation so bad. And, it's plain as day. We all watched Trubisky play in that Thursday night game, and it was over, right? We all knew it was over. It's like, hey, you got a long week. It's set up perfect now. And then you just botched this. Listen, how can you ask me to fade Josh Allen? I would say that this game, at least within my third eye of range of outcomes for this game, I could see Arizona at least maybe having in the range of outcomes pushing back more than I could see the Steelers against the Buffalo defense.
That's kind of what I'm asking. Yeah. Which game stays closer the longest, I guess. Right. And Vegas, of course, is saying, Philly on the road, they're only a 5-point dog. You talk about Buffalo being a massive favorite there against Pittsburgh. But will Buffalo just go for the throat? They like to throw, they like the way I play Madden. I'll still throw the ball on you in the fourth quarter if I'm up by 3 touchdowns. I don't care. It's not fun to run. Yeah. And you mentioned Singletary. They're just throwing the ball into him a ton anyway. He's been, we'll talk about him. I guess we'll talk about running backs. But did you have a take on that, John, as far as a preference amongst, pretend Tom Brady's not playing. We can talk about Hurts or
the Bills are the only team on this slate with a 30-point team total. We want exposure to their offense this week. I don't know if it's through Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie if he goes. Khalil Shakur will be popular as just a one-player tack on if Crowder's ruled out. So I don't know. And it's not like I love Tom Brady. It's the fact that I don't know what the field's going to do just yet. So if you can pull up early projections, that'd be great. But Tom Brady presents an opportunity to either double stack him for the last 2 weeks, or if you don't believe this pass rate over expectation that they've had the past 2 games, if you believe that it's actually because they trailed 14-3 in the third quarter against the Packers, and then they trailed 21-3 against the Chiefs, then you play Leonard Fournette thinking they're still a run-heavy offense as 8.5-point favorite. So you can go both ways with Brady. That's why I'm just kind of letting it shake out to see. Brady double stacks could be amazing, especially since the target tree is condensed. Chris Godwin, season high routes run on his dropbacks last week, basically became a full-time player again. The targets go, especially without Cam Brate, they go to only Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. So the Tom Brady double stack is right there for everyone. But if the field gets there, I can leverage off of that for Leonard Fournette, since Rachaad White didn't get his first touch till they trailed 21-3. I don't think Rachaad White's actually a standalone piece in this offense. I still think it's Leonard Fournette's offense. So I'm just kind of debating which direction do I go, because I definitely want a piece of that offense.
That price for, we're not on receiver right now, obviously, but that price for Godwin on DK 5.9 looks pretty appealing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's going to be the highest roster receiver.
Yeah, Brady's going to get there. I think he's going to be really popular. Because we're getting Brady off of a loss against the Falcons at home. His 4 games against the Falcons and the Buccaneers, he's been the QB11, the QB4, the QB2, and the QB3.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't run the football at all. The Bucs are just this is the one area where their shortcomings up front, because Brady, you still can't pressure him. He's going to get rid of the rock. He still is not taking any pressure. See, he gets rid of the ball too damn fast. But when the missing pieces they've had up front have really shown up when they try to run the football. Leonard Fournette, the past 3 weeks, he's got 37 carries for 97 yards. They just can't run the football. They're not a functional running team. And now that they've got all these horses back, all the wideouts are back, like I think they're gonna wing. They're gonna be winging this thing around, like for sure. Like, and then like I said, off a loss, like Brady. I mean, Brady's this one. He's at his best.
I mean, I don't want to be the guy that brings it up, but there's some off-field situations going on with Brady, right? And who knows how that affects things. And
I mean, you could use that narrative to.
Yeah,
you could go either way, honestly, on that narrative. Sure.
By the way, you were asking about ownership. This is Wednesday night. Don't take this as gospel, whatever. Pulling up Fanduel specifically, quarterback ownership. Hurts number 1, Allen number 2, and then there's a break where Brady and Hribar are basically the same. So Hurts and Allen are clearly the top 2 guys on Fanduel ownership-wise, and I think that holds. I think you're going to have money for them, one of those 2. On DK, yeah, Fanduel, just the way the builds work. On DK, it's Allen, then Brady, then Hurts. But Brady and Hurts are very similar. So, yeah, it's going to be Allen up top. At least that's where we're at right now on Wednesday night. But those are going to be popular quarterbacks. And then I think people are going to go, if they need to, they might scrape the barrel with some of the guys we kind of touched on. I don't know how necessary that will be. What's the story with Gabe Davis, by the way, since we're talking about Buffalo? He can't get any separation. He's not getting any looks his way. I know he's been playing hurt. I have UCF on my brain because I've just got an eye on UCF against SMU, where we're in the fourth quarter. They're up 26-13. I know the people out there are very concerned about my Knights, but should we be concerned about Gabe Davis, or is he going to be fine? What do you have, Rich?
I think he'll more or less, end up being fine. I mean, he's going to be a guy that, well, one, he said he's been playing hurt. 2 weeks ago, he dropped the touchdown pass too. If he catches that, we probably aren't talking about this. And he's also just going to be one of those guys. Like, this is who Gabe Davis is, right? Like, he's kind of a feast or famine guy. Like, he'll give you a 2 to 3 week stretch where he's kind of, lying dormant, and then he'll pop off and have a 60-yard touchdown or have a multi-touchdown game. Like, that's who he's been to start his career. So, I'm not 4 weeks in with him playing with a hurt ankle, like they still need him. When you look at like the Bills passing game, and we've seen Josh Allen's ADOT, kind of really plummet this season. His rate of deep throws is way down. His ADOT's down for his career. And it's largely because it's been Diggs. And then the next guys in targets have been Isaiah McKenzie and Devin Singletary, who are just inherently going to drag your ADOT down when they are your second and third targets. So I think Buffalo will still get back to, moving the ball vertically, and, we'll see some touchdowns from Gabe along the way here.
John, your favorite run back for Arizona in this Philadelphia game, is it Hollywood, or is it the revenge game Ertz? One of those two?
I forgot we were even on this game. It would be Hollywood, and he does have the toughest matchup, but I just don't know where else you go. Again, like knowing the field, and you have Wednesday night projections there, but knowing the field will probably play Ertz. Ertz, again, is not a player I am scared to fade whatsoever, since he's just a reception floor guy. I can look elsewhere for a cheapy touchdown at that position. And Rondale Moore, it's just interesting because we expect AJ Green to come back this game, who was out last week, but the Cardinals only used 3 wide receivers, 11 personnel on just 52% of their snaps last week, compared to 81% the first 3 games. So they actually kind of ran a different personnel as well. They made Greg Dortch obsolete with Rondale Moore back in the lineup. And so even Moore's 8.5-yard depth of target from the boundary, while that's interesting, he needs more volume, first of all. And second, we don't know if it sticks with AJ Green back. So there are just a lot more question marks than just simply playing Marquise Brown.
Ownership's really spread out as far as tight end. DK specifically, right now, Higbee's the top guy, 4.3K.
Another reception floor you don't mind fading. Yeah.
Monday night pricing was cooked in. I mean, listen, there's another tight end in this game that's the same price as Zach Ertz that is really good too.
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah. I mean, dude's averaging 15 yards per catch. Like, you talk about upside at the position on a slate like this, where you don't have Kelsey, you don't have Mark Andrews, we don't even have Darren Waller on this slate. And I can have a tight end at the same price as Zach Ertz, who needs double the targets of Dallas Goedert to produce the same amount of yards as him. And if you get the fight back, because, I mean, Goddard is one of these guys too. Like, you look at all these Eagle stats in the second half of these games, like Dallas Goedert has 4 catches in the second half this year. Like, if they just play a full game, like, you've got ups. All these guys' stats look different, right? Like AJ Brown could be having the most ridiculous wide receiver start that and we could be seeing right now if they just teams fought back against the Eagles. AJ Brown has 10 catches after the halftime this year. It's, like I said, they've thrown 38 passes after halftime this season. So, I mean, if we just see the Eagles play like a full game, like these guys all probably look even better. And the fringe guys like Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert probably look even absorbently better than that too. And then Arizona, they have faced good tight ends to open the year, but I mean, 27% of the fantasy points scored again then this year have been scored by tight ends. That's 31st in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, I like Goddard a lot, especially on this slate, because he's one of these tight ends, like he has legitimate upside.
Mm-hmm. We have 4th and 5th as far as ownership between those two on DK. So they're right there. And same deal on Fanduel. Ertz is the 3rd most popular tight end and Goddard 4th. And it's super close. Number 1 on Fanduel, by the way, you're not going to like it. It's Kyle Pitts, who didn't practice, I believe, on Wednesday, right? But we'll see. Stay tuned. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
I don't think you even need to run back your Buck stacks. I think you just pile on the Bucks points and that's it.
Let's see. Well, what would be your Buck stack? Could be Brady, 1 of or 2 of. You would double stack it without a run back?
Evans and Godwin. Yeah, I don't think you need to run back. I think you just go for their team total and their touchdowns, and that's it.
Should we mention their running backs?
You could play Fournette and just soak up all the touchdowns if they happen to rush for one.
Yeah.
What can we say or what can we guess as far as, Cordell Patterson, John, is out?
The full 4 games plus some. We don't know, because all they do, people get confused that whenever they're eligible to return, they will return the game. But that's not true. Like, then they're eligible to return, then their 21-day practice window opens, and then you don't know if they're even going to be a full-time player or when they'll return within those 21 days. So given that he underwent a quote-unquote minor surgery, I would imagine it's the 4 full games for IR plus some.
But I mean, as far as this game, Huntley's like 4-3 on DK. Is it out?
We're not playing a running back against the Bucks. We're not.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Yeah, just. Nah. I know.
Just play Jeff Wilson on Fanduel. Don't worry about the other running backs.
Jeff Wilson's just claimed that backfield, hasn't he?
I wouldn't play any of the guys, but I will say that the Bucks run defense is not what it was, and then the Atlanta run game is unique enough, I think, to be good against even good run defenses. Like we saw in week 1 against the Saints, like they just run so many unique sets that I think it gives teams problems, and they obviously run so much pistol and RPO stuff that they might be able to run it still, like collectively. I don't have no clue like who's going to be the dude to come out of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if like the Falcons still have like success, like efficiency wise, because like running the football still.
Is there a clearly defined, like, let's say Tampa's up by 2,
Arthur Smith doesn't care. Like,
okay, like who's the chase guy? Who's like the guy they're down by 2 or 3 touchdowns and is going to be out there to catch the ball? Or
they'll probably still be running a whole drive of pistol RPO down 21.
Tyler Algier has run at least 6 routes in every game. Caleb Huntley has only been active for 2 games, but he's totaled 2 routes. Like, it's still Algier who would be there running even more routes, we assume.
And they're not throwing to any of these guys at all. They weren't even throwing to Patterson.
They weren't.
That's what I was asking. Yeah,
Patterson had 2 targets the last 3 games. They weren't throwing to him at all.
Converted wide receiver, Patterson receiving 0 passes. It's just okay. All right,
it's Drake London and Parker Hesse. That's it.
Oh boy, that's a steep drop off. Drake London burned me last week. I had a bunch of Drake London and no Hockenson. Your boy had himself a rough week, but this is the week we turn it around. That's the idea.
I think Mariota sabotaged a lot of folks last week.
Yeah, the Mariota versus Geno Smith decision was a fun one because they were kind of a similar decision point, right? Similar price point at least. And if you chose
Mariota was awful.
Yeah, he is who we thought he was. I think
he's going to be the first quarterback in fantasy to average over 8 carries and literally not be usable at all.
Well, Justin Fields.
Oh, that's true. Justin Fields is right there.
Justin Fields. I don't even know. Like, I have to rebrand after Justin Fields this year, I think.
The Bears need to start playing a different game or something. It's wild what's going on there in Chicago. All right, that's our 3 games down. We're going to run it back and talk about our favorite players position by position. Before we do that, we are sponsored by Thrive. Do appreciate their sponsorship. Want to let you know what's going on over at Thrive Fantasy. It's an easy-to-play, no salary cap style contest that revolves around over-under style player props. Each prop has a fantasy score associated with the prop. The riskier the prop, the higher the fantasy score. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Rack up the most points for your share of the prize pool. We're going to give you a nice, sweet deposit bonus. Use the promo code GRINDERS, GRINDERS, when you sign up for a deposit bonus up to $250, as well as free tickets. How do those free tickets work? If you deposit between $100 and $499, I don't know why you'd stop at $499, but if that's what you do, you get yourself 2 free $20 contest tickets. You put an extra buck in there, $500 deposit, you get 6 free $20 contest tickets. That will be $120 in contest tickets. And again, you're going to be getting a $250 deposit bonus when you use the promo code Grinders. Check out the RotoGrinders review page for Thrive Fantasy in the description for more information. Terms and conditions apply. And we're going to scroll through and find a couple that we like this week. I sent them to you guys via the email. I presume, John, you have them. No layups as always. Let's not go for the one where you get like 45 points. We don't want 45 points anyway. Let's try to be as bold as possible. What do you have as some of your favorites props this week?
That Tom Brady over 270 yards at the top is pretty juicy for all the reasons we talked about, especially because the discrepancy for only 10-point difference from over and under is probably not fair. They probably should have done like 120 for under and like 75 for over. So we'll take the over, the 95 points there. And scroll down. I think as you were talking and scrolling, I saw some more.
That's the producer. That's not me. It's showing them off.
Okay. Well, let's go. Let's go Najee Harris under 89.5 rushing, receiving yards. Maybe gets there on receiving, but we saw from Kenny Pickett in an entirely different offense as we expected. Najee Harris didn't get a single target last week. Kenny Pickett is going to launch downfield. Kenny Pickett also scrambled on 37% of his dropbacks as a rushing quarterback. And so, Najee Harris's volume just continues to slide. So I'll go under on that.
I took a peek as you were talking at the Derek Carty, the blitz projections for Brady. He's projecting 303 passing yards. So that would be distinctly more than the 270.5. And you get 95 points, which is pretty solid.
He's going to get steamed. Brady's going to be high roster by the time we get to Sunday. That's my concern here.
Yeah, I mean, I generally default to give me the quarterbacks with legs as opposed to not the quarterbacks with legs, but that doesn't mean he can't go for 350 and 4, right? So, and he's fine. But in my head, I put him behind Hurts and I put him behind Allen just because he can't move. But maybe that's wrong. I'm not sure. Rich, do you have a thought on that? And do you have any thoughts as far as a couple winners here on Thrive?
No, I mean, I'm with you as far as I don't think from a pure ranking perspective, but what's your phrase, Dean? We live in a world with salary cap.
Yeah.
So, Brady with Brady playing on Sunday night when the pricing already came out. Remember, because the narrative going into Sunday night was like, damn, Brady looks awful this year without all these guys. And then they all came back and it was like, oh, they can actually throw now again. And, so the pricing stayed the same because he was grandfathered in because they played at Sunday night. Granted they didn't win the game, but all the counting stats were there for Brady and they look functional. I think his price would look a lot different if they play that game like during the day, right? So
you know what? This is a good point that you make because I didn't realize the difference in salary was that distinctly different. $6K on DK, as opposed to 18 for Allen. That's usable. 2K is usable. Yeah, I see why all the Brady love is coming. And on Fanduel, you're getting a difference maker as well. 7.8 for Brady as opposed to 9 for Allen, 8.6 for Hurts. A little bit more distinct on DK.
Because remember, he was unusable for fantasy football purposes going into that Sunday night game.
Yeah. I mean, showdown, you have to because it's showdown. But yeah, I understand the point you're making.
Well, we all knew, like outside looking in, we were like, oh, well, like they're just missing all these guys. Like once these guys come back, it'll be fine. Like this was always going to exist, like this scenario. But the fact that it happened on Sunday night, like the breakout, like when all these guys came back at once and the pricing for the following week's already out during the game. Yeah. Like if that game, I'm saying if they play that Chiefs-Bucks game, if that happens at 4 p.m. last week, his price is not what it is right
it's
now.
Like 7-4, something like that.
But no one's going to play Carson Wentz, Dean. Just letting you know.
You're not talking me in the Wentz. You got me on the Brady, and that makes a lot of sense. But Wentz ain't happening. A lot of dominoes have to fall for me to say Carson Wentz maybe. But I cannot see it. But I do like some of the pieces in that game. So you got me there. Rich, did you throw out a prop or two? Did you happen to have the list in front of you, or we're good to go?
I like all these Cowboys ones, these Cowboys-Rams game. Cooper Kupp, you're getting 30-point difference to catch 9 balls. He's going to do that for sure. That's what he does every game because he's the only functional part of their offense.
His over under was 8.5 last week. Like they didn't increase it at all.
No, and it's a 30-point difference. Like it's not even like you're not even getting like the 10% juice on it. Like also Stafford, 2.5 touchdowns plus interceptions. You're getting best of both worlds. I mean, he leads the NFL in interceptions. He also is definitely probably do some touchdown regression. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in back-to-back games for the first time since 2016. So I imagine he'll get some back. And then Zeke under 52.5 rushing yards for 120 points. Oh, baby, I love that. The Rams have been awesome against the run.
That's pretty good. I like that.
I like that Zeke one for sure. So I like all those in that game. That's a game too. Like that game's probably going under for sure.
Yeah, Kupp. You're getting a nice reward for 9 catches for Kupp, and that seems like a lot, but that's just basically what he does. And you're getting 115.
It is a lot of catches, but that's like who are they throwing to beyond 8 yards downfield now this season?
Well, he reached that mark. He beat that total with 11 minutes left in the third quarter last week. Like it doesn't. The offense is only going through Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and I saw Robinson. Like I'm sure you're doing this, Rich. As far as he's out there exercising, right? He's getting
big exerciser. It's not helping him. He's not getting any faster and running away from anyone, but big time exercise going on with Allen Robinson.
Let's hit on some quarterbacks we like. We've touched on many throughout, just kind of like organically throughout the conversation. We talked about Josh Allen, Brady. We've talked about Mac Jones. I mean, wasn't supposedly Mac Jones back at practice last Friday? That's why I thought like maybe I didn't think he was going to play last week. I thought that was absurd, but like it seemed a little promising. That was the report at least. And also, like, you have to feel a little bit better when you see Detroit on the other side. Or maybe, is it going to be Zappy season? I want Zappy to be good. Somebody tell me Zappy is going to be good. Is he ever going to be a thing? Because that's a fun name. No, probably not.
I mean, yeah, the name is amazing. The concern is, like, that whole game has me in a pretzel because the Patriots are favored. The Lions have like a 23-point team total, and they've been scoring like 30 every game.
Yes.
And then last week when the Patriots were able to hang around with the Packers, they just ran the football every play. And it's like, well, man, like if they're like ahead and this implied total plays out, like Detroit, we know they're awful against the run. Like, man, like were they just gonna just run the entire game? Like, is that a scenario for this game? I don't know, but I'm not going to get into the weeds of the Mac Jones stuff just because it's too early to know. That's the whole reason we talk about like just exhaust ourselves in Detroit last week. I will say there's one quarterback that I do like that we didn't talk about, and that's Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was hot, before last week. I don't know how much of a hall pass he gets for last week, playing in the rain. One quarterback played good, one didn't. But the matchup is great. I mean, Houston, you look at what they've done defensively from a schematics team under Lovie Smith. I mean, 85% of their snaps are cover 3, cover 2, or man coverage. Against those coverages, Trevor Lawrence is 8th in the NFL in EPA per dropback, 8.1 yards per pass attempt is 12th in the league. So, I mean, I like him. I think that they bounce back offensively. They're able to move the football. So, I mean, he'd be the other guy that I say, like, I might do like last week, like Daigle said he got on the Charger stacks. Like, I'm not going to overlook these Jaguar stacks.
John, quarterbacks, you want to join the conversation? Are you in agreement with Lawrence as well?
In agreement. I think James Robinson is also an amazing pivot after we saw Travis Etienne play quite a bit when the Jaguars were suddenly down 29-14 in that game. But overall, yeah, I think we discussed everything I'll be playing. I'll be watching Josh Allen and Tom Brady closely, see how the field is going to play them. And then, honestly, maybe I do get on to Jalen Hurts and just hope the Cardinals push back.
Yeah. You got to get some Hurts. If you're playing a certain number of lineups, I think you got to at least introduce them to the player pool. If you're only making one, I understand if you go away. But like Rich is laying out, man, imagine if he actually has 4 quarters to play with. That'd be so much fun. Did you say, Rich, your favorite player to pair with Hurts? Is it Goddard? Or Brown?
I like Goddard and Arthur Juan. No problem with that. But I do like the way I think the slate sets up to make Goddard like a real legitimate hammer potentially at the position.
Yeah. John, did you want to open up running backs? We kind of touched on Fournette, and I was wondering how much is White becoming a thing? How concerned should we be, or should we be fine with Fournette against Atlanta? That's a non-issue at this point.
He got 2 little goal line carries. White did. He didn't get his first touch until they were down 21-3. I still don't think he's a factor. And Leonard Fournette still had 7 targets. So, like, Leonard Fournette still has a high floor, especially on DK, if you're trying to leverage off of Tom Brady if he gets steamed. So that's why I still like Leonard Fournette. On FanDuel, Jeff Wilson for 6,300 is pretty insane. He's handled 30 of 31 running back carries the past 2 weeks. And as we know, touchdowns are how we get there on FanDuel. So Jeff Wilson and as double-digit favorites for the 49ers against the Panthers is an awesome play. Touched on James Robinson in a favorable game script. Jaguars over touchdown favorites in that one. Devin Singletary, if you're trying to get off of Josh Allen, Singletary's handled 74% of backfield touches the past 2 games. And then obviously Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson. But the issue is I think both Harris and Stevenson, especially because Stevenson is significantly cheaper than Harris on both sites. Like, I think both of them are going to get played quite heavily.
Yeah, so Harris is 7-2 on FanDuel, 5-6 on DK. Stevenson, 6K, big difference on FanDuel, 5-5 on DK. So Harris and Stevenson, similar price on DK. Harris distinctly more on FanDuel. I saw somebody in chat, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to float this out there, Rich, the possibility of just playing both and just getting every carry in that game and just shredding Detroit 7 yards at a time. Is that something worth considering? Does that hurt your ceiling to some extent? And also, if you're just going to pick one, is it Harris or is it Stevenson?
I mean, we've done this in years past, like toyed with this idea, and it's never worked out. So, like, I would say be hesitant to say, like, yeah, this is a sharp move because this has come up before, like over the years. I would say it depends what you're playing, right? And I know it's a cop-out answer, but like if I'm playing in cash games, I think Ramondre Stevenson, especially in DK sense, is a better play because he's running, pass routes at a higher rate. He's catching the football. He has a better floor, right, in that setting. If you're just chasing touchdowns and looking for a run out, I think Damian Harris is pretty interesting, right? Because he's still getting the goal line carries. He had both snaps inside the 10-yard line last week. Could he have a 2 or 3 touchdown game? Like, absolutely he could. He did this last year multiple times. So, I mean, it depends what you're playing, what's your structure. If it's cash, large field, small field, like it's, are you playing on FanDuel or are you playing on DK? I would say Stevenson is the better floor between the guys, but I don't have a problem with, kind of either or because it's like almost 50-50 split. Like, really?
Yeah. It's like Green Bay Light, kind of, sort of.
Except for you don't have a guy as good as Aaron Jones that you're not trying to give the football to actively like the Packers are. He's not as – they don't have that pass catcher that's as good as Aaron Jones either. But
I think you actually pay up for Harris on FanDuel just giving game theory that everyone will pay down for Stevenson.
And he's like everyone's favorite player, Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous considering Harris, all he does is score fantasy points, and that's what we care about.
But I ran those optimals on FanDuel on a Wednesday night, John, and you hit on a couple of the running backs that are popping. I put some caps on it. I didn't want to get 100% of anybody. But Fournette hit the cap on FanDuel, 65%. Jeff Wilson, 45%, 65%. I'm sorry, 39% for Singletary. So right out the gate, those 3 guys that we've kind of touched on throughout. And I guess neither of the New England guys have hit. Breece Hall, 1%. I think maybe more popular on DK. We'll see. Is he going to be popular? I know people are pumping him up in season long. They're getting excited about Hall's getting a little bit more for the Jets.
I think people would rather roster any rookie than actually win their fantasy leagues. Like if you hook them up to a polygraph, and like Breece Hall is popping, but people don't care about winning their fantasy leagues. They only care about talking about rookies. That's it.
The shiny new toy is more fun than the old dude. That's just how that works, right? Is that all that is? I think.
Yeah, Michael Carter 1 more year into his career than Breece Hall, and yet he's shunned as like a 40-year-old.
Rick, did you have another running back that you want to introduce? We haven't talked about any of the expensive ones. Like maybe that's an interesting route to go this week. Spending up for CMC. He caught a bunch of passes last week, but
yeah, we're not doing that.
I mean, they're just not running any plays, which is kind of a problem, right? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, they're not running any plays, and like it took a fourth quarter run out for them to actually throw them the football for the first time this year on one final drive. Our guy Ryan McChrystal at Sharp Football posted this note that the last 17 games the 49ers have played, the opposing running back has gone under their rushing line. Yeah, I'm not doing it. It sucks to say, like, to be like, oh, no, I have no interest in Christian McCaffrey, but I don't really have an interest in Christian McCaffrey this week at all. I'm just praying to God he can get there for my damn teams that have him, that took him at 101 or 102. I'm going to try to get my jollies through that. But we named a lot of the ranks. It's a pretty good running back slate. You named off a bunch of cheapies. James Robinson, I think, is a pretty auto smash. Houston has allowed the RB1, the top overall score, or the RB2 in 3 of their 4 games this year in fantasy football. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you can just – and they were this way last year too. They couldn't stop anyone on the ground. Just running backs are absolutely smoking them. That's the case again. I know he's not going to be like I don't know if he'll be popular or not, but I think Dalvin Cook is a pretty good spot. There's one where you probably are worried maybe about the game just like not being good.
He's got a really good price for Cook, 7.3 on DK. That seems
when you're talking about those like high price guys that have a ceiling, though, he does stand out as I believe having a really good matchup. The Bears have really struggled against the run too to open the year, but we named a lot of those good guys. I think it's a really good running back slate overall.
Yeah, you mentioned running back versus Houston. What's the split like these days? How confident are we Robinson versus Etienne?
I think it's just pure game script. Like the hand's been already revealed to us.
Okay. All right. So you feel better about Robinson than Etienne right now?
Yeah, we saw like when they were in negative game script last week for the first time since week 1, Etienne started playing. You know,
Robinson fumbled in the first half. They literally gave him the next carry on the very next play. Like it doesn't matter at all. If it's a favorable game script, obviously the Jaguars are favored by 7.5 at a lot of books right now.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a James Robinson hammer game.
And good. I mean, when coaches pull a guy after fumbling, it's like the dumbest thing. He knows he's not supposed to fumble. He's not trying to do it. Why punish him even further? Like, and why suppress the rest of the team by playing the guy that's not as good as him?
We didn't talk about it either because it wasn't one of the games picked. But I mean, don't sleep on that Cleveland Chargers game either. Like potentially being good and having fantasy points scored in it. Obviously, last year they played. I think they played a game that was like 47-44 or something, but. Like I could see the running backs in that game being all over the board too.
What's the deal with the Chargers defense, Rich? Because I know they're losing. But is Bosa's hurt, right? They've had some injuries. That's another team that's supposed to be getting better, adding some pieces defensively. Has that played out correctly or not so much?
No, their defense has been awful to start the year. Yeah, it started out okay. They're starting to lose pieces. They're starting to lose bodies. Probably one of the most disappointing things. Both those LA defenses have been pretty disappointing. To start the year. The Rams have been good against the run, but their pass defense and pass rush has been bottom of the league.
Rich, open up receivers. Who's catching your eye?
We talked about a bunch of guys. Terry McLaurin is my kind of flag playing early in the week. We'll see. And Robert Woods, if you want to get really gross. If Keenan Allen doesn't play, I mean, I know the Mike Williams roller coaster has been full effect this season, but I mean, Cleveland's just giving me a ton of huge plays in the passing game. They've allowed 12 completions on throws over 15 yards downfield. That's 24th. They're allowing 15.5 yards per catch to opposing wide receivers. That's 31st in the NFL. So I like him. We can always stack our Trevor Lawrence guys with, Christian Kirk and Zay Jones if he's back. And then also like Stephon Diggs, still very good. Don't ignore him.
Our projections really like Zay Jones on DK. He's 4.
They always do. The RotoGrinders model, I know, really likes Zay Jones.
I don't know. He's cheap, and we don't know if he's playing or not. We're assuming he's playing with this projection. John, thoughts on guys that were thrown out there? Who you want to add to the conversation?
We've talked to a lot of. The only one really is CeeDee Lamb, 34.5% target share from Cooper Rush the past 3 games. We expect that game to go under. Cowboys defense on DraftKings in particular will be highly rostered. Since they're so cheap, 2,500, which is ridiculous. But who is also going to bring along CeeDee Lamb with them? So I think it makes sense on DraftKings.
Also, the people always have this thing with the Rams because they know that Jalen Ramsey plays for the Rams. Going back to last year, so the Rams last year were 24th in the NFL in points allowed to opposing wide receiver ones. This year, they're dead last. They've allowed the most points in the NFL to opposing wide receiver ones through 4 weeks. Stephon Diggs 8 for 122 in week 1. Drake London in week 2 8 for 86 in 1. Hollywood Brown in week 3 14 catches for 140 yards. Deebo Samuel Monday night 6 for 115 in 1. there is like the stigma that Jalen Ramsey doesn't follow guys around in this defense. Like he doesn't shadow guys. They have consistently given up points, and the guys outside of Jalen Ramsey have been hurt. They've been rotating guys in the secondary. So I mean, CeeDee Lamb is another really good call.
So you shouldn't be afraid of the cornerback. I feel like that kind of conversation's gone away. A lot of the content that I see out there, the quarterback, wide receiver matchup, and I always thought it was a little.
I don't know if our friends at the Swolecast know a single defensive player.
You're better for it. You'd be way better for
it. Yeah,
to be honest. Sure. I laid it out though. I mean, you look at it let's look at this from a top-down view, right? So in the NFL, teams are running zone coverage almost 70% of the time. And if you want to look at a team that like runs the highest rate of man coverage, the Detroit Lions, right? They run man coverage 45% of the time on pass plays. That's less than half of the passing plays. So even if you have a guy that's guarding a guy in man coverage, he's automatically inherently from a top-down view doing it on half of the passing plays, right? Like, so it's already cut in half. And then he has to actually be shadowing that specific player on his man coverage assignment to be like, we're in the weeds on this stuff, and I get it. It's great data. It's fun. But, like, if you just look at it from, like, the 10,000-foot view, like, it inherently just doesn't make sense, especially when you're talking about wide receivers who 1 or 2 targets is all it takes to get there, right?
Yes.
Like, to catch a touchdown, to catch a long pass. I mean, typically – unless it's like a blatant, like outright, like we know this guy's going to shadow this guy and like full on man situations, like it's tough to like really get bogged down by that stuff anymore.
What do we do when Lattimore plays Mike Evans later on?
That's the only one. That's a legit rivalry. We don't have any more rivalries like that in the NFL. Like the old, like when like we had Andre Rison versus Dion, or like Dion versus Mike Irvin, like Lattimore versus Evans is a legit fisticuffs.
Rison versus Dion. Wow, that's a good one. Yeah, back in the day. But like, do we even project Evans for 4 quarters or like 2.5? How do the projection models work for that? We have no idea. But tight ends. Let's knock out some tight ends. John, we don't have no Andrews. Andrews not in the main slate. Kelsey not in the main slate. Waller not in the main slate. Pitts didn't practice on Wednesday. I assume he'll play on Sunday. We'll see. You talked about getting in the weeds on some ugly tight ends. By Fanduel really overreacted to Hockenson. He's 7K over there. Freiermuth, can Freiermuth be like that safety net?
I don't mind that though, because if like all the guys are going to be out again, they just pre-jumped everything.
Yeah. That's actually a good call, and you're right. And if that's the case again, he's 4.9 or so on DK. It'll be the ownership will be insane, and I'll be in on it, and then it'll flop, and then both ways.
I don't think the Sun God's going to play for sure.
You feel pretty confident in that? Okay.
Yeah.
No,
he's got that high. He has a high
Chark
ankle.
missed practice today too, right?
Yeah. Sun God's got a high ankle. It's only Wednesday, but I thought he'd for sure miss multiple weeks.
The strategy may be to pay up for Hawkinson then. I'll give you a very bad, cheap tight end to spin down for, because again, we're solely going for touchdowns on FanDuel. We're looking for leverage.
Can I get it? Can I guess?
You're not going to be able to guess it, but yeah.
I think I'm going to guess it. I didn't mean to jump the gun, but I never do I really look down beyond 5K on FanDuel. But 4.5 Hunter Henry, is that who it is?
It is Stoneman Hunter Henry. You
yes!
are correct. We are trying to take away Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson's touchdowns at the goal line. And where else are we going to go but Hunter Henry, especially if Jonnu Smith is out? Henry ran a route on 83% of dropbacks in week 1. I would imagine we get closer to that rate as opposed to the past 3 games, roughly 59-60% route rate, with Jonnu Smith being more involved. So, yes, I will be playing minimum Hunter Henry if Jonnu Smith is out.
Do you know who is $100 more on FanDuel and is currently the most highly owned, the tight end that landed in the most optimals I ran for FanDuel? I don't know if you looked at all the prices, but he's on a team that doesn't throw the football, which is kind of a problem because he plays tight end. And
you can't play. You're not talking about Cole Kmet, right?
I'm just reading.
We're not playing Cole Kmet in 2022.
Reading what it says. It says Cole Kmet is in 48% of lineups.
We play Logan Thomas before we play Cole Kmet every day of the week.
Is Logan Thomas also like 4.6?
I didn't look.
Whatever it is, you're just not playing Cole Kmet because
we play Adam Troutman before we play Cole Kmet for sure.
Jump in there, Rich. Your thoughts as far as tight ends? I don't want.
No, Hunter Henry was like the bottom dweller I had too. Kind of like
God, we're in
Circle.
30% Hunter Henry range. That's where we're at in week 5.
I mean, there are no secrets in this game.
That's true.
He's 2.9 on DK. That's usable. That's usable.
I mean, you have to go back to. I mean, last year he led all tight ends in end zone targets. Like, we gotta get where'd that go?
Optimals are giving you Cooper Kupp and Higbee for what it's worth. Wait, is this right? The very first optimal I pulled up is 2 tight ends. That can't be correct, can it? Hunter Henry and Higbee.
Not this week.
Yeah, I mean,
we've already talked about some good cheapy wide receivers, and the running back slate is awesome. So, like, I don't think we're looking at 2 tight ends this week.
I don't think so, but like you're getting some value theoretically with Hunter. Hunter Henry is 2.9 on DK, 4.5 on FanDuel. Higbee's got a good price too there at 4.3.
Can't get cheaper.
Quite true.
Is there anything else, Rich, we should say? We're supposed to close strong here, but we always close on tight end. That's just how it works. But what else you got?
No, that's fun, man. No, we kind of ran through it. It all looks good. It's a fun week, man. It's a fun week. I look at this slate and I like when stuff's like this. It's a little bit spread out. It's a little bit sporadic and some chaotic. You have to take some bad plays, put some faith in some bad plays. I'm all for it.
Reminder that you can play on, Thrive. We talked about Thrive earlier in the show. Do not forget to play the fantasy prop action over there. Promo code GRINDERS, GRINDERS, when you sign up for a deposit bonus up to $250, as well as those tickets we talked about. I guess that's it. That's the show. We got to give the plugs. The people know. I mean, it's week 5. They knew in week 1. They knew 3 years ago. They knew 5 years ago, whatever it was. They know where to find you. But just in case they don't know, John, where can the people find your content?
4for4.com, where I had to write about Latavius Murray quite a bit. And I'm about to go check bids and see if I happen to get him on overspending in FFPC. Also, 4for4.com for the rest of this week, we are running a 25% off sale. You don't even need a promo code. I don't need to promote myself at all. Just go to 4for4.com and sign up. If you've been dabbling your toes in the water, thinking about it, 25% off any sub you want, any sub.
Same deal, Rich. You were talking last week over there at Sharp. You had a percentage off based upon the number of points scored in Cincinnati, Miami. What was the total in that game? I don't recall now.
I think it got to 40. It was like 45 or something. It should have been in the 60s. It should have been in the 60s, though, because they kicked 2 field goals from the 1-yard line and Chase Edmonds dropped the touchdown pass. But they let you guys down. But
Warren was happy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was happy and sad at the same time. But yeah, this week we're also doing 25% off. You just use Get 25. We're doing 25% off as well because, like you said, Dean, it's week 5. It's the quarter poll.
Is it my math? I think was. Did anybody take my math?
It's in between.
Yeah, don't bust out the calculator on me. That was the NFL Pick 6 show. That was week 5, sponsored by Thrive. That was Rich Hribar. That was John Daigle, producer Steve. Appreciate him hanging out with us. I was Dean from RotoGrinders. Good luck in week 5. We're out of here. Oh.